Craig Counsell's subpar 2024 campaign with the Chicago Cubs. What we liked, what we didn't like. Let's talk about it right now after this. Welcome in, everybody, to the CCC Chicago Cubs Central Podcast. I am your host, Mike Jones. Excited to be here with you again on this beautiful day. Hope you guys are having a great day. And if you're not, hopefully this podcast brightens your day a little bit. As today we will be talking about one Craig Counsell, the manager for the Chicago Cubs. Obviously we've reviewed the story before, but that's just for term's sake, let's talk about it. Craig Counsell was stolen away from the Milwaukee Brewers and lured over to the Chicago Cubs during the 2023 offseason, I guess before the 2024 season. Um, and he was lured away with almost stolen from the Milwaukee Brewers like a thief in the night. It came out of nowhere. Nobody understood or knew that he was even on the Cubs' radar. This was probably the biggest power move Jed Hoyer did and decision Jed Hoyer made in his tenure with the Cubs, I think, at least on the good side of things, not the bad side of things. And a lot of bad things. Nonetheless, it just came out of nowhere that the Cubs were essentially getting rid of one David Ross and signing Craig Counsell to be the Chicago Cubs manager. David Ross was told that his job was safe. The end of the year meetings that they do with the teams and the players, and they just told David Ross, yeah, your job is safe. We're going to give you another year. We'll see where the guys come in next year. We'll see how everybody comes in, how you manage next year. We'll move forward from there. So David Ross was under the assumption that his job was safe, that he had done a well enough job to be able to get another opportunity with the Chicago Cubs managing for them. And of course, we know now that was not the case because out of nowhere, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting on my couch and the message came through on my phone from ESPN app and from MLB and from Bleacher Report and from what I said ESPN, from all of those different sites at the same time, that the Cubs had just signed Craig Counsell to the highest paid contract for a manager in baseball, and that was 40 M's, 8 million a year for him. So he has a 5-year deal with the Chicago Cubs. Year one for the Cubs, I think our expectations were immediately that this is what was going to take us to the promised land. This is what was going to allow us the opportunity to be able to reach the playoffs and win the NL Central, which is something that the Cubs believe that just by changing managers, that's automatically is going to make the Cubs better. Problem is, outside of signing Shota Imanaga, this was the hallmark of the Cubs 2023 offseason. This is what they did. They signed Craig Counsell, they signed Shota Imanaga, they got a couple of pieces for the bullpen and whatnot, and they said, let's go. And it just did not replicate the way that they thought it was going to. Obviously, losing Justin Steele the first game of the season does not help. Cody Bellinger being injured for a portion of the season does not help. Obviously, also having struggling offense output for 2 months of the season did not help. However, Craig Counsell was hired to be able, because he's a smart manager. He sees things and thinks about things ahead of what some other managers do. And we kind of needed him to step up a little bit more in those areas. And like I said, make adjustments quicker. I thought that his time with the Cubs and making adjustments and what he was trying to do, it just took too long for him to make the adjustments needed to continue the Cubs' success. I thought when we were going through that 2-month drought, I mean, just expecting guys to hit themselves out of that drought, after 2 weeks at least, you have to make some adjustments, of losing 2 games, winning 1 game, losing 2 games, winning 1 game, getting swept the series, swept the series, swept the series, losing a game, then winning 2 games. I mean, that's no way. That's not a recipe for winning the division. And because we're not a 90 win team. And Craig Counsell let this be known. I'll read exactly what he said um in his presser, end of the year presser to the media. But yeah, Craig Counsell himself, I thought that he brought some good to the Cubs too, in the way that he managed certain things. One thing they did far differently than David Ross was the managing of the pitching staff. He didn't push guys beyond their capabilities, especially in September. Last year, Ross did that, and I mean that actually could be one of the reasons that hurt Adbert Alzolay the most throughout his career. This year, even though Shota Imanaga wanted to play and pitch his last start of the season, Counsell held him out, you know. And like I said, it's just good managing of your starters and your pitching staff obviously will lead to those guys being healthier and again being available for you. Now, if the Cubs were in a playoff push and a playoff race, obviously then you obviously want to have your best ready to go. But the Cubs were already out of it by that point. And so, like I said, they were just playing for the end of the season. One thing that I did not like that Craig Counsell did was he gave too much leeway at third base to Christopher Morel to try to figure things out. And that hurt the Cubs this season in 2024 twofold because his bat was not good. He had a high strikeout rate. And then on top of that, he at that hot corner at third base, I mean, he was abysmal for a majority of his time there. And it was just terrible. The experiment failed miserably, and the Cubs traded Morel to the Tampa Bay Rays for Isaac Paredes. So the thing that I believe the most with Craig Counsell is that these Cubs, the players, do respect him, and I think that they do appreciate his managerial experience. He is a players coach, so therefore he will always have his players back. He supports his players up against the media when the media tries to call out certain guys and whatnot like that. Um, but again, I just think that Craig Counsell has to do better with making adjustments to his lineup when it comes to guys not hitting. We cannot wait for guys to hit themselves out of slumps. We got to be quicker. We got to be quicker, have quicker reactionary to that. We got to make sure that our guys are good to go. And if they are not, then if they cannot play, if they are injured, they cannot be playing. You cannot have them in the starting lineup. That just cannot happen. Um, like I said, it's crazy to think about the fact that Craig Counsell even was drawn away from the Milwaukee Brewers, who did actually still keep rolling and got another division title in 2024. And a lot of people thought, including the Chicago Cubs, that just by plucking their manager Craig Counsell, that they would have an opportunity to be able to just hurt the Brewers that way. But in all actuality, the Brewers kept rolling. The Brewers kept rolling. Like I said, pitching staff was decent. Freddie Peralta did his thing. Like I said, Christian, and it wasn't even Christian Yelich that was killing them. It was just an array of talent and guys in and out the lineup, just doing what it takes on a day to day basis to win. Um, Counsell had this to say about the Brewers and the time with them. He said, looking ahead, Counsell said the space the Brewers have put between themselves and the rest of the division, it makes it daunting. They've created a gap the last 2 seasons in the division, so we've got room to go, man. We've got work to do for sure. Counsell, of course, was part of the process last year. His Brewers helped eliminate the Cubs from playoff contention in the last week of the 2023 regular season while resting their top starters with the playoff berth already clinched. Then the then accomplished manager, known for getting the most out of his teams in small market Milwaukee, left for the promise of a new challenge with the division rival, the Chicago Cubs. And this is the statement that everybody has said, including myself. This is what Counsell said. We should try to be building 90 win teams here. That's what you have to do. That's the playoff standard. That's what you've got to get. You got to get to be safely in the playoffs, safely in the tournament. So from that perspective, we've got a ways to go. Now, absolutely. He's not lying to you at all. He's not sugarcoating things. He's not lying to you and he's not withholding information. His expectation is, hey, you lured me away from Milwaukee with the promise of a new task. That task was to win a World Series with the Chicago Cubs, manage a team that can potentially win a World Series. But in order to do so, you have to give me a team to do that with. And you have not given me the pieces to do so. He's talking to Jed Hoyer and Tom Ricketts, I believe. I'm paraphrasing right there, but that's really what he was saying in that call out about winning, about putting together and building 90 win teams. Um, it's like I said, it's going to be uh a daunting task for Craig Counsell to be able to do so. Because, like I said, that Milwaukee Brewers organization, though they may not have any World Series, though they may be an easy out in the first round of the playoffs, that still does not matter because they have a chokehold on the NL Central division and the Cubs, who have been battling the Cardinals, battling the Pirates at times, and of course, battling those Brewers, are definitely trying their hardest to regain their ground in the NL Central, and you're gonna have to do so. So the expectation, and I love that Craig Counsell mentions, the expectation of building 90 win teams because that puts the onus back on Jed Hoyer, that puts the onus back on Carter Hawkins, that puts the onus back on Tom Ricketts. If you want me here to be able to coach and manage World Series championship teams, you have to give me the players to be able to do so. Don't bring me here and treat me like this is Milwaukee. Milwaukee and Chicago are two completely different franchises, whether that's football, whether that's baseball, whether that's basketball. The market in Chicago is vastly larger than the market in Milwaukee. And Craig Counsell is expecting to be able to contend. If the expectation for him is, hey, we brought you here to bring us teams so that we can contend, then he's saying, give me players that I can manage that can help us contend. Like I said, it's just one of those things, but that is the expectation for Craig Counsell, and that is the expectation Craig Counsell has for this administration and for the ownership of this team. So that puts everything back on Jed Hoyer. That puts everything back on Jed Hoyer. And that's a scary thought because now you're asking Jed Hoyer to not be cheap, to go out and to swing for the fences and to bring in pieces that Craig Counsell can use and manage and bring hopefully some success, a monicum of success to this Chicago Cubs organization that is thirsty for it. Have not had a playoff win since 2017, have not sniffed the playoffs since 2020. So that is the expectation for Craig, and that is our expectation for Craig and for this organization. We want to get back to the playoffs. Chicago Cubs should definitely be in the playoffs. The last two seasons, the Cubs should have been a playoff team. Mismanagement, injuries, and just not planning and spending the money that you need to spend is what kept this organization from reaching their goals. And that's on them. That's on them. That's not on us. Us as fans, we should be able to, if they're going to make us pay $20 and subscribe to the Barkey Network, they should at least put a product out there that has hope and aspirations and has a real shot at making it to the to the show every single season. That is what we should expect from the Chicago Cubs team. And they have to stop running themselves like a small market organization in order to do so. Like I said, you went out, you swung for the fences, you got the best manager possible in the game in Craig Counsell, but you also have to give him the pieces around him to make that a real thing and to make that a reality that the Chicago Cubs organization can contend with anybody. Like, it's not a daunting task to go up against the Philadelphia Phillies. It's not a daunting task to go up against the Dodgers. It's not a daunting task to go up against whomever in this division, the Padres or whoever. We can play with anybody. The Braves, it does not matter. That's what we need to have. We need to have a team that we can be confident in like that. I'm confident in Craig Counsell as a manager. I am not confident in Carter Hawkins and Jed Hoyer. So if things don't shake out right, Cubs are going to have to make some moves at the managerial position, at the general manager position, and at the vice president position after this season. But for Craig Counsell, if I'm going to give him a manager grade, I think for this season, I would say Craig would probably get a B from me. I think a B is safe for Craig Counsell for this season. Not the greatest, not his greatest managing job, also not his worst managing job. So we'll just have to see where we go from here. But with that being said, that's my time for today. Hey guys, I appreciate you so much for tuning in to this podcast, the Chicago Cubs Central podcast. Again, I'm constantly trying to bring you content. I want to build viewership up. I also want to build up subscribership. I want to bring in different talent to pod with me, to talk Cubs with me, and just like I said, have fun and talk about the team that we love the most. What I need from you to help with that is, once again, leave a voicemail, 773-389-6954, or email us at Chicago Baseball Central at gmail.com. You can also follow us on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Chicago Cubs Central. Once again, we want to hear your voice. We want your voice to be heard. The best way to do that is through those mediums. So once again, guys, I appreciate you all so very much